I recently met Carson. Carson is a young man who turned 15 this year. I had a dialogue with him that was very revealing to me as a 55-year-old man. Carson is just now starting high school, and he entered a little bit nervous, but he's already become a hacker in terms of his education and his life. He's gotten scrappy and very independent. He's going to figure it out as he goes along. Carson games 2 to 3 hours a day and Googles for even more. He spends a lot of his time in front of a screen. That's probably no surprise. When I talked to him about his relationships, he said he has a girlfriend, but they haven't actually met in person. They met online. And now they Instagram and Snapchat and tweet each other, but they've yet to meet in person. In fact, Carson would tell you, if he were honest, that he has a lot of friends that he's not actually yet met in person. Some of them are global relationships. He later confided in me that he actually feels much more comfortable with relationships that he can start and stop on a screen. He just feels safer with that. When I asked Carson what he wanted to do for a career, he said he's actually been researching jobs that will allow him to create games in the Silicon Valley. He'd love nothing more than to continue his hobby now and get paid for it. After talking to Carson for just a little bit, I got to thinking, oh my gosh, his life is so fundamentally different than my life at 15 years old. But he's figured out a way to make it work. He is somehow making it happen in the 21st century. It reminded me of my first time I began teaching students way back over 35 years ago. When I first began to work with students, I related them a little bit like a brother. I was just a little bit older and a little bit wiser, and I was still close to them. Later, I remember moving to an uncle stage, if you will. So I was a lot older than they were. Maybe I was 30 and they were 17. And so now I was more like the uncle that was not quite as cool, but still cool. And then I remember getting into the stage I'm in now, where I'm more like a father to these students that I'm teaching. And one day I will be a grandfather. I could be a grandfather to Carson right now. So my relatability is going to have to be intentional. I am not cool anymore, and you aren't either, okay? But what I need to do is actually be intentional about connecting with him. I'm not trying to be Carson, but I'm wanting to understand him. So my research, my collection of data, my listening to him and people like him has to be far greater. And what I'd like to do in this short video is just give you some things I've dug up. I have a series of 2-word terms that I think aptly describes this emerging generation that sociologists are now calling Generation Z. They're the ones following Generation Y. The IY syndrome still affects them, but they're the kids born since the 21st century began. 9/11 is a piece of history to them. We remember living through it. So let me give you these terms real quick just to whet your appetite for this new batch of kids that are coming through. Number 1, instant access. They have a Google reflex. They can look things up immediately, instantly, if you will. Very little working and even less waiting. Number 2, new normal. Think about it. They grew up post 9/11 with terrorism as a normal part of the conversation every day. Somewhere around the world, suicide bombing is happening. They grew up with racial unrest, if you think about it, between Ferguson and Baltimore and New York and Charleston and Chattanooga and Louisiana, and just continues to go. There's just a stirring right now that hasn't been for some years. A sour economy is all they remember. Either mom or dad has always been looking for a job, and this is the last 7 or 8 years of their life, so it's all they really remember. And just a state of uncertainty and complexity that's never been before felt by kids. I know stress has always accompanied adolescence and puberty, but probably more so now than ever. The number 1 word college students use to describe their life today is the word overwhelmed. Number 3, on demand. You and I enjoy this as well, but this next generation it's all they've ever known. They don't have to wait to watch a show until Thursday night at 8 when it comes on a major network. It's now whenever they want it, whether it's Netflix or Hulu or something online. It's now when we want it, in the moment we want it. Number 4, multicultural. We hear this term all the time, but this next generation, this is the norm. There has been a 50% increase in mixed ethnic races blending together in families and marriages, transgender and so forth and so on. We're just in a new day today, and we've got to understand them in order to lead them well. Well, I've got several others in the new chapter of this book, but I'm going to do my best to help you understand this newest batch of kids so we can lead and teach them well. I'm hoping you're going to enjoy it.